All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Deep End. I hope everyone is having a fantastic week. I know we are. At least I know I am. Ari, are you having a good week, man? How are things going for you?
I am having a phenomenal week. And as everybody knows, because we say this every time, just before we hit record, we were talking, chatting in the back room, I guess, of Riverside, and just a lot of great things going on. Any updates on my end? At least the latest I gave Ryne was Series 7 update turned into I have to actually postpone taking the Series 7 and take the SIE. And so that will be done. It's just nearly done with the manual, as I was telling Ryne, and I got to go back to the books here in the SIE manual. But that's all good. Secured a date for myself upcoming week, so I'll update everybody even here. That's, I think, the biggest investment on the week. And the stock market's been quite good to us this week. So what can I say? Ryne, how's your portfolio been?
My portfolio is really good, man. I'm back up to as far as like the portfolio value goes, I'm getting pretty close to being back up to I think like an all-time high, but I still have some ground to make up because I did in terms of like the total return, like the percentage, because I did throw a few $1,000s to start my Zoetis position. So yeah, I still have some recovery to go, but it could be worse, man. And I mean, like you said, for the most part, things have been really solid this week, and even last week we ended it on a good note for the most part. And I wanted to see how you felt about one of your biggest holdings, UNH, man. It this stock and this company just cannot seem to catch a break. It just keeps taking hit after hit after hit. How are you feeling with all of that? Are you still feeling good about
I
where things are at,
had a
or
feeling the moment you said I had a question
oh,
about
that
one of
wasn't
your
a
holdings. I go,
oh,
it's
oh,
it's
there you
the
go.
only one it's going to be is United Health.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've actually gotten a lot of followers, whether on Blossom or on YouTube, who have asked the same question. What am I doing about United Health? How do I feel about United Health? And it's interesting because first of all, I always will preface by saying that I'm a long-term investor. And so I got to look for opportunities now. And usually when there's an opportunity in the stock market, it's because the news around that particular company isn't so hot. So this would be one of those opportunities now, I think, presenting itself for a vast majority of younger investors who have the very long timeline ahead of them. And I'm going to give you now why I have still bullish conviction on United Health. And so if anybody doesn't know what just happened with United Health, I think the biggest thing that's been ongoing since the death of Brian Thompson has really been now this awareness about United Health and these medical claims and this investigation that's been opened up about their medical claims and how they're going about handling them. And then there was the Medicaid fraud case that was brought against United Health. That's already in the background setting the scene for us as of maybe 2 to 6 weeks ago. And so, as Ryne shared, like United Health cannot catch a break. And I have been using a lot of this time to actually double down on United Health and buy shares. And as of 2, 3 weeks ago, I actually haven't really bought much of anything aside from VGT. And that's just because I've been swamped with so much work. It's just easier to buy an ETF. But then we come to our news as of like the other day. And there are two major pieces of news that made United Health just go for another skydive here, which was they suspended their 2025 outlook, and that rocked shareholders and prospective investors because when a company is suspending their outlook, well, that can't be good, at least from what the executives are seeing on their end. And then on top of that, their current CEO, Andrew Whitty, stepped down. And from what all I've gathered from United Health, he's stepped down for personal reasons. I have a different opinion on why he may have stepped down, but I don't want to share that opinion because it may be wrong, and I'm going to leave that for everybody to do their own due diligence. I'm just saying I think there's more to that puzzle as to why he stepped down. But on the very positive note, which is actually, I think, a blessing in disguise from the CEO stepping down, Andrew Whitty stepping down, because now we're getting the man, the myth, the legend, Stephen Hemsley, who actually was the executive who led United Health to higher highs for the last decade before Andrew came in. So we're getting the CEO coming back out of kind of the bench warmer seat there of retirement and back in the game. And I think we've seen this. I mean, you look across various companies, Starbucks, a classic example. How many times has Howard Schultz come back into the game for Starbucks to help Starbucks rise again? Disney's another example that comes to mind right now. But usually when you have these CEOs that come back into the business and really ramp up, revenues again and kind of create that nice shine for the company again, we do see a strong recovery. And on top of that, the CEOs who were able to drive revenues up and help that share price soar to new heights, well, they know the business in and out. So I think as much as we've gotten a lot of negative news around United Health, we actually just had a blessing in disguise, I think. And so long story now short here, if you're a long-term investor on United Health, opportunity zone, and I would look into it. But if you are nearing retirement, again, I'll always say be cautious. But Ryne, I don't know how much you read into United Health. I'll toss the ball to you. Like, what do you think? What are your thoughts on it when you see it?
Yeah, first and foremost, I cannot believe you did all that just on the fly off the top of your head. That was very smooth. So
It's
hats
one of
off to you
my,
for
dude.
that.
I got one of seven, stocks to know.
Yeah. So very impressive performance there just now. Good job. And the only thing that I really know about this company and what's been going on with it are some of the things you said. I knew about the Medicaid lawsuit. I knew that there was maybe some frustration around them not paying out claims or something along those lines. I knew about the CEO stepping down, and to your point, I don't know what your alternate opinion is on why he stepped down, but when they say it's for quote unquote personal reasons, and I don't want to apply this across the board, but I think it's in a lot of cases it's probably pretty safe to assume there's more to the story there. Um, and so it'll be interesting to find out if we ever do what exactly that is. Um, and then as far as suspending the guidance or suspending the outlook, yeah, I could see why that would spook investors because if nothing else, it just creates uncertainty. And I think that speaks to how uncertain the company is about the near future. And I don't think it's entirely a bad thing that they are coming out and saying we don't know exactly what's going to happen. I think probably better that than set expectations that they can't live up to. There's probably two different ways to look at it, but that's kind of where I settle on it. Um, and kind of zooming out across the board, I like you, I get asked about United Health Group all the time, and also other insurance companies as well. I've been getting a lot of questions about Aflac lately. I've been getting some questions about others like Allstate as well. And I just don't know how to look at these companies. I don't really know what makes them tick. And that's the big reason why it's the big reason why I haven't considered investing in a company like UNH or Humana or any of the others. But it does seem enticing just from a share price action, just from like a dividend perspective as well. I mean, I'm looking at the stats right now. The yield is sitting at 2.7%, which last I looked was about 55 or 60% above the company's 5-year average. So if that's one of the things that you use to gauge valuation or gauge where a company is in relation to its average valuation, then by that standard, UNH looks incredibly discounted, which we can look at the share price performance, and that might not come as much of a surprise with the yield right now almost 60% above the average, which is pretty crazy. And for us dividend investors, where the safety of that dividend is concerned, we hear the bad news, we see the share price going down, and we do get concerned for the dividend, whether or not these things have any impact on the dividend or the company's earnings or free cash flow or anything like that. But still, you see this bad stuff, and it gets apply to those negative feelings get applied to the dividend. I will say it doesn't look like the dividend is at any risk of being cut right now. The payout ratio is only 30%. And historically, the company's been a very solid dividend grower. You're getting about a 14% 5-year average dividend growth rate and a 15-year dividend growth streak. So, above average yield, very low payout ratio, very nice dividend growth streak and growth rate. From a dividend perspective, this looks like a good one to consider if you understand these companies, which I do not, once again, and if you feel good about the long-term outlook of this company. But I don't really have much of a serious opinion. I don't have an in-depth opinion on it beyond that because just overall, I really don't. I really don't get insurance companies, and I've been trying. To be fair, I've been trying to understand more about them. And one place that I've been looking to learn more about them is actually in the Berkshire annual shareholder letters. Warren Buffett talks, in every letter he'll talk about their insurance operations, and usually within that is a lesson about how insurance companies are run and lessons about float and the cost of float and all of that stuff. And it's just still so over my head, but I'm trying, and hopefully with more practice and with time, eventually I'll come to understand a company like this. And maybe for now it's to my detriment that I don't, or to my detriment that I don't just dive in despite not knowing about it. But I still think, if I'm going to buy it, I want to at least understand what makes it tick, and I just do not. But with that said, I would be surprised if a company as big and large and as much of a behemoth in the industry as UNH is, I'd be surprised if they, didn't come out of this and weren't bigger and better 10, 15, 20 years from now than they are today. I mean, health insurance is just one of those things that everyone needs, especially here in the United States where it's so expensive.
I think, well, first I want to say United Health is the largest provider, in the US. And so anytime you have the largest anything and it's the industry leader, it always just gives an added measure, I feel, of safety and comfort, and knowing that if, nothing's ever a guarantee to 100%, but if a company like United Health was really going under the water, just based on their customer base alone, I think the government would just step in. I mean, it's so big. It's like when you have a failing bank, right? The government is going to do everything they possibly can to rectify a situation and step in where they need to. Leeway is given, because if not, and this is what happens when a company gets so big, far too many people are impacted in such a negative way. And so I think that works out also to our benefit. I do want to say, Ron, I can really respect your investment approach, because as you always share, you don't invest in companies that you don't understand, and nobody should be investing in companies that they don't understand. And so even though there's an opportunity in front of you, it's like you're sticking strong to your values as an investor. And I think that is, if anything, a very standout, strong message we all should be taking from this conversation, at least. And
Thanks, man.
Now that we know my biggest loser, Ryne, what is your biggest loser?
Oh, for the week, let me pull it up real quick here.
I've taken a lot of heat the past couple of weeks. I'm like, let me ask Ryne his biggest loser.
So, man, my biggest loser in the last 30 days, I'll just look at that time period, is actually Clear Secure, which we've talked about this one before. I've talked about it at length on the channel. I would say that out of all of the stocks in my portfolio, which, by the way, guys, just a quick sidebar, if you want to see my full portfolio and Ari's full portfolio, you can do so on Blossom, and the deep end is it is powered by Blossom. They've been such a great partner. We just partnered up with them a couple weeks ago, and it's awesome to be in the Blossom family officially. But with that said, if you guys want to see our full portfolios and see other investment postings and other stuff we're doing, check us out on Blossom. There's a link to download it. There is a link to download it in the description of the video or in the pinned comment. There we go. I was hoping I could get through that without getting tongue-tied, but that's just, it wouldn't be me if I didn't get a little tripped up. But anyway, guys, yeah, definitely check out Blossom. There's a link to it down below. You guys will really like being on there. It's a really awesome community of investors. But Back to Clear Secure, I would say that out of all of the different stocks in my portfolio, Clear is the one with the most volatility. It is the one with, I would say, the most amount of uncertainty. And so far, it's been an incredible grower. Like the revenue, the earnings, and free cash flow have all grown at a very aggressive clip. I actually just listened to their most recent quarterly earnings call, and everything had grown by double digits year over year. Yet again, no surprise. And what's interesting is that upon releasing that news, I think the stock took a bit of a hit, and that's why it's down so much in the last month, just related to the earnings news. But honestly, swings like this are so normal for this company because it is just so volatile. It doesn't have the biggest market cap, and so that's going to naturally increase the volatility anyway. So anyway, that one's been my worst performer, but I'm still holding strong with it. I think at this point I'm maybe down 12 or 13%, so really nothing too crazy. And in the meantime, getting a nice dividend. Dividend growth has been pretty nice so far too, with the limited dividend history there is. And it seems like the company's just printing cash. So I hope that continues. I'm gonna knock on wood. But even if it doesn't, it's only about 4.5% of the portfolio. So like hypothetically, which I don't plan for this to happen, but stranger things have. Hypothetically, if this stock went to zero, it would suck. I'd be out a few $1,000s, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. It's not like it would completely like wreck my entire portfolio. It would sting, but we'd survive.
Ryne, what keeps you level-headed about Clear Secure in moments like this? Because we're just talking about United Health, of course. For me, with United Health, it's the long term. It's a behemoth, and even
Yeah.
that in of itself adds comfort. But Clear Secure is kind of like a newbie to the block, and so I'm curious, when you see the future of Clear Secure and the company's growth trajectory, what are your thoughts?
I think what keeps me level-headed about it and what keeps me feeling okay about it from a long-term perspective is what I've seen in the past until today has been nothing but growth, and that has come in spite of a lot of people calling for its demise, basically saying it is a ticking time bomb, which, to be fair, it may well be. If you know what this business does, well, maybe you guys haven't, maybe you haven't heard of it. This company operates in the digital identity industry and biometrics. And so just as an example, one of the things they do, and this is their bread and butter, if you go to the airport, there's like the TSA line, right? So that can at times be a very long line. And so Clear Secure exists to basically help check you in and help you skip that line. They basically just scan your identity in take your identity and verify your identity, I should say. It's the right term, in a faster way than you would be able to have done if you were standing in the normal security line. And then once you have it done through Clear, you go through their dedicated clear lane. They'll take you right up to the front of the security line, and you can get through security, and hopefully what will end up being faster than if you went through the normal TSA line. And so people subscribe for that type of service, and like I said, that's been their bread and butter. And they're expanding into other things too. They have partnerships with healthcare companies to basically make the check-in process for like doctor's appointments, for example, faster. So maybe you don't have to fill out the form, or they'll be able to already have your medical history pulled up. They're also expanding into B2B partnerships. Some other stuff they're doing is, identity verification with companies like DocuSign, Uber, LinkedIn. So they're starting to expand beyond what they've mostly been known for so far. But that is the biggest question mark, I think, when it comes to this company. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but I think this context is important to help maybe explain how I still feel level-headed. I'm trying to outline the risks of it, is what I'm trying to get to. And the big risk is that a couple of them. So if you sign up for Clear at the airport to get through security faster, the more people that do so, well, that's only going to create a bottleneck through the Clear lane. So they have to continue to optimize and make their processes faster to avoid that bottleneck. But that's one potential risk, where the Clear line's not as efficient as just going through normal TSA. So that is one potential risk. And there's a risk that they're not able to diversify their revenue beyond that. But they're working to do that, and that seems to be coming to fruition. So I'm not as concerned about it at that point. But I guess with that said, that's the main risk right there. And from what I'm seeing, they're doing a good job of mitigating that and expanding beyond that, because their ultimate goal is to be like a frictionless identity verification platform, not just for airports, but for like any instance in which you would need to verify your identity. And that obviously takes time. So we're seeing that play out, but that's going to be a multi-year process. And the industry is still so young and growing very rapidly, which kind of leads to two different things. I mean, number one, that's where a lot of this company's growth is coming from. There's growth just because the company is executing well, but there's also secular tailwinds for the industry as a whole, which is great. So it's a young industry that's growing and becoming more important as time goes on and things evolve. And we there's more of a need for digital identity verification, and as it becomes easier for data breaches to happen and digital security risks increase. So there's an increasing need for something like this, but with that also comes new entrants and other competitors trying to get into the market as well. So that's another potential risk. But Clear's been able to stand out so far just because of their brand recognition now. I mean, you see them at the airports. If you see it now, you kind of pretty much know what it is. And also the partnerships that they're forming with these other big, very recognizable companies like the ones that I just named. So closing the book on all this, I'm sorry I've been talking so long about it. The things that still make me feel good about the company despite its risks and despite the negative share price performance that I've seen is just the fundamental growth, continued growth in sales, earnings, free cash flow. There's no debt on the balance sheet either, so that's like another great thing that I like to see. So that combined with them doing what I think is within their control to overcome the risks that have that the company's been facing, and that's not completely resolved, but it's playing out over time, and I think that's also partly the risks plus the size of the company. I think those are the things that make it so volatile. Hopefully all of that makes sense. I know I just went in every direction with that, but I felt like there was some context that needed to be added there because it's kind of a confusing under the radar company.
I was going to say, man, I think you just use up all the time. All right, investors, until next week.
Until next week, exactly.
That's been the Clear Secure Deep End. No, I think, first of all, I used Clear Secure on my way to Vegas, and it was pretty cool. It definitely saved me over probably 30, 40 minutes of standing in that line. And
wow.
I will say I had an experience with Clear Secure that I didn't know it said, the guy said, put all your information in, have a credit card on file. It's not going to charge you, whatever. And then all of a sudden I got home weeks later from the business trip and I did in fact see like $100 and something charge. It was from Clear Secure. And I emailed the company right away. They were in touch with me and I explained the situation right away. I had the reimbursement or the credit back. And I think that is a testament already when a company can show that they are going to put customer service first, the values and the standard that the company is now setting, for the future. And I think a very positive experience. And, as I will be flying more and more, I actually told the representative that I, very likely will eventually use Clear Secure because of my both favorable experiences in the airport, to and from Vegas, and then not only in the airport, but then here in this moment that I had to cancel, the account that was created. It just was seamless. And the other thing that came to mind as you were talking, Ryne, was, will it potentially create bottlenecks in the line? Yeah, but I kind of see it working out like there's always going to be at least one designated line for, human-to-human interaction. Because that's just going to be necessary. There's going to be, I think, always just one guy or two guys on standby. But I ultimately would foresee, even if everybody switched to Clear Secure, technology will progress and get better, which means that it will probably do a quicker job, more efficient job than a human in the first place. So even if it spares you 10 to 15 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes, I'm here to say that for people who drive 60, 5 or that's not over the speed limit usually, 85 miles per hour down the highway, and they like to arrive at their destination just 5 minutes earlier for speeding. I think we're going to have the same effect. Even if it just saved you 5 minutes, people are going to choose to save 5 minutes worth of time. And that's only if everybody switches to Clear Secure. But then here's the thing. I think here's where the real opportunity comes in for Clear Secure, is that what they're really offering is not just the, I want to say, customer and user of their technology, the ability to go through a line faster or have a little bit easier of a time with identification verification. I think what they're really offering is more of the B2B. At least that's how I'm seeing it. If you can eliminate an entire workforce of people who, let's be honest, a lot of these people in the airport, everybody's been in the airport, they're yelling at you, do this, do that. Not always pleasant. Not everybody, but not always pleasant. And if you can just eliminate kind of the useless jobs that are there to, form a line and to do this correctly and do, the airport personnel will, I think, be diminished, but save the company's money, right? And I think that's going to be a big winner. And that's not to say, because I know we're probably going to get someone in the comments saying, oh, yeah, but you can't do that because people have to work. It's like, we just look back in every revolution, every time, even a tech revolution that's still in the works right now. With every new piece of technology comes the elimination of some jobs and the creation of other jobs. And they actually, with the creation of these new jobs, allow us as a society to advance. And I think that's always important to look at too, just in case someone does comment away down there. But those are kind of my overall thoughts from not even knowing much else about their balance sheet and Clear Secure's financials. I think you hit the head of the nail there with that, and you would have that covered. But I'm also just thinking now, Ryne and I just shared our biggest losers, and I'd love to know everybody else's biggest losers, so I don't feel like such a schlup, with United Health. If everybody could go ahead and comment down below, what's your biggest loser? Wow, Ryne, I'm slipping up here. What is your biggest loser, and why you're still continuing to hold on to your biggest loser because of the conviction that you have for it? I'd love to know. Now, Ryne, you had someone who emailed you, and we talked just briefly before we jumped onto the deep end. And I'd be curious to know, it was a fascinating story. If you want to share, what the email was about and
Yeah,
throw some questions
abs-
in the ring.
absolutely. So I had a fella by the name of Jake send me an email earlier this month, maybe about a week ago at this point. And I don't know exactly how old Jake is, but he's still in school. I don't know if it's high school or college, but one way or another, he's in school. And he reached out to me and told me that he's doing some sort of school project where he has to write an essay, talking about, basically he's making this project based around investing and how to, I think, get people started with investing, and some of the things that keep people from starting to invest. So it seemed like really interesting stuff. And as he said that he's someone who watches the channel, and he wanted some help answering these questions that he could use in his essay. And he sent me 5 questions, all of which are really interesting. We won't have time to go through all 5 of them today, I don't think. There are a couple that I think are very, very interesting questions and definitely made me think. And I want to go through at least one of them with you today, because I think you'll appreciate these, and I think you'll have some really good answers to these. So the first question that I want to share, and I'm really curious to get your thoughts, probably something we've touched on before, but from your experience, what excuses are most used by people to not invest?
That is such a good question. What excuses? Every excuse in the book, man. This question, excuses kill me. Just a total side. I'm working with this individual on like, his life stuff, personal life matters and all this. And a part of the process, and it will make sense why I'm sharing this in a moment, but a part of the process is actually, I give an assignment that takes about a week. And you can get it done in a day if you really wanted to. But I'm generous. I give a week. Okay. And I met with him on Friday, and he's got a week, Friday to Friday. And I get a message from him today, and he goes, "Oh, man, I can't do the assignment because, my family's in town, and I haven't seen them, in a while. And not only are they in town, but, my girlfriend and this, and like, he's giving me the whole rundown." And I said to him, I'm not going to use his name. I said to him, look, in 7 years, no one has ever been unable to do this assignment with the week's allotment of time. To not complete it. My apologies. And he goes, yeah, but, but. And then he hit me with like, but the family. And I was like, yeah, I know, but it's a week. And if you're really serious about what he's trying to be serious about, like there was what I wanted to say, and then what I just let it all go, because what I wanted to say, and this is now where I'm going to tie into excuses, is I don't care about your excuses. Do it. If I'm waking up at 4 a.m. and 4:30 and 5 a.m. to do things that I need to do, on top of working a full-time job, YouTube channel, podcast here on the deep end with you, Ryne, walking the dog as a single, pup dad here, everything going on. There's just no way that this guy is busier than me and going to come up with an excuse. And so I'm saying now, when we're talking excuses, everything in someone's mother can be used as an excuse. Literally, I can't invest because I don't have the money. I can't invest because I don't have the knowledge. I can't invest because whatever that someone's thing is. And I think if I were to loop it all back to just one giant excuse, it all comes down, even in this guy's case, to fear. I think fear is the biggest excuse that we kind of wrap up and package to make it look like a justifiable reason why we actually can't invest. Like not having the money, there's also fear in there, right? If I take away from this element of my life to get the money, then I'm not going to enjoy life as much. It's like there's weird rationale behind it. I just think it all comes to fear. If we're really hitting the nail on the head, so to speak, that's what it all boils down to. So then the number one reason why people aren't investing is fear.
That's it. I didn't think about the money part that you just described. I didn't think about that as coming from a place of fear, because I share that same sentiment. And how I would word it if it was me, I would say, oh, they don't want to spend, allocate money towards investing because they would rather spend it somewhere else. But you're saying that it's not like well, maybe it is a preference, but that preference rooted in that is fear. They're afraid of.
Well, if we go deep on that, and this is why I love working with people. I think people are fascinating. I love psychoanalyzing, man.
Do you think this is the right format to go deep? This podcast?
Yeah, this question, right? the deepest
We're about
end.
To get. Yeah, let's hear it. Man. Let's hear it.
When I psychoanalyze this fear, what I'm really looking at, and again, it's 7 years of sitting with people in these capacities. I've heard everything. There's nothing that phases me anymore. And I could talk, about things I've heard that are just, this is what movies are created out of. But why I say it boils down to fear at the root of it is because in the situation that you just mentioned, Ryne, like someone's got, and that I mentioned that you kind of double backed on it, someone's got money and they don't want to change the habit. I don't think it's that they don't want to change their habits. I think they're scared to change their habits because it's going to force them to become somebody else. They don't know who that person is. And when you change yourself, when you start to change your habits, you're really changing yourself. And when you change yourself, life changes.
Yeah.
And that's a tough pill to swallow for some people. Who are you going to become? And that question, who am I going to become? Like, let me personalize it. Um, I take the Series 7 and pass it. Who am I going to become after the test? What's the workload going to turn into? And am I ready for that? Do I really want that? And you just start questioning in all forms and facets. The first time I wasn't really asked. I was kind of told like, hey, we want you to get the Series 7. But I was flattered, but I was also, the first question that came to mind, if I'm being honest, was, do I really want it? Like, do I really? Because as everybody may or may not know, there was a snippet of time I left Tip Ranks and I went full time on YouTube for the first time. I went full time on YouTube, and I had like a few months worth of my own creative freedom before I got approached and poached. And I'm a corporate guy, so I like corporate, working in the corporate space. But there was a 3-4 month period where I just loved being a creative thinker on YouTube and doing 4 or 5 videos a week. And I saw everything, the revenue uptick. I saw the view uptick. I saw everything go up. And then I got approached and I go, do I really want to work for a company again? Like, those are the questions that go through your mind. And who is Ari going to turn into when he steps back into corporate America? Or who am I going to turn into after the Series 7? Who am I going to turn into right after I started training for the marathon and waking up and running? And I already was sharing on the deep end that it's not like I'm just going to stop waking up now at 4:30 or 5 a.m. because there's no more marathon to train for. I'm actually just going to put that energy somewhere else. But I turned into an entirely different person. I think the vast majority, and Ryne always likes to talk about the gym, so I'll just throw this in there. When people go to the gym, this is where some of the biggest miracles of change happen. You start putting that consistency every single day. The man or woman who goes to the gym on day 1 is a vastly different person who goes to the gym on day 90. Their diet has probably changed. Their security within themselves has probably changed. Their confidence has changed. So many things have changed. They're not the same person. I think the same thing applies with finance and investing. So many things in someone's life will change, and it might get a little uncomfortable. People are afraid of that.
That makes a lot of sense. So I think that you are what you repeatedly do every day. Kind of like you were saying, your habits kind of define who you are. And if I'm connecting the dots here correctly, what you're saying is, in this fear, the decision to just start investing, no matter how big or small the amount is, it could be $5 a week. The decision to do that is maybe a step into becoming someone different than that individual is today. And maybe the fear is, if I take steps towards this new person who is now starting to invest, I have to give up another small chunk of my identity over here. Like, maybe I can no longer be the person who goes to Starbucks every day. Maybe I can no longer be the Starbucks enthusiast. So maybe people are afraid of sacrificing a part of themselves who does XYZ habit to then start this new habit. They think that it's like an or type of situation, not an and. Like, they don't realize I can be the person who invests and still goes to Starbucks, or and does this thing that I like to do. And the fact that they maybe think it's an or situation and it's black and white, maybe that's where the fear comes from, you think?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's, again, we talked a little bit about this last week. I think it was last week's episode. Man, there's so many now. But we talked about the B word, budget. And like, you say the B word and people run for the hills because that budget's going to require them to change. And I think people are just terrified of change. And I'm here to say that there's a price that you're going to have to pay if you want to level up. There's just a price you're going to have to pay. And the Starbucks coffee is one of those prices that you might have to pay to get started in investing. But the thing is, if you pay that price early enough, then thanks to the eighth wonder of the world, compound compounding, right? You could buy more Starbucks coffee than you ever have the capacity to drink, right? You start investing in Starbucks, get those dividends, and now you could just get essentially Starbucks coffee on the house, if you will. But you're gonna have to pay a price at first. And that's a very uncomfortable price for people to have to pay. And I think because typically people tend to look at things. First of all, I do look at things and act accordingly in a black and white lifestyle. I'm either all in or I'm all out. I'm good. And I personally like living like that. It has simplified my life. It has made my life easy. And a matter of fact, for me personally, I found it has made me immensely more successful. I said, I'm going to study for the Series 7 and take kind of an off the grid month. That's what I did. And, I'm I'm ready to go, and I feel confident. I put every hour, moment of my, morning and afternoon into this, and I'm coming out the other end of the month. I feel very solid. But I think if you live in that gray area, I'll do a couple hours here. I'll do this like I'm doing my own thing. I'm going to be comfortable about these things. I don't think it's a bad approach. I just think you might not get to where exactly you want to go. Definitely not in the time you want to be there. But you might be disappointed at the end result. And so, on the flip side of this, though, if you do go into the situation with the ands and the ors, I choose this or this. It's very simple. I like the simplicity of living like that. But there's certainly room for the and. And I think the and can come in with, I can be an investor and once a week go for the Starbucks coffee if Starbucks is our thing. Or I can be an investor and treat myself with a tall venti loca latte, whatever, like once a month. And it will be
Yeah.
the most I've ever spent at Starbucks on a venti loca thing, right? So that's how I think someone can approach that, and if they really want to succeed here in investing.
Yeah. So there can be a compromise, but still, even coming to that compromise, a sacrifice has to be made, and there's still fear of wanting to do that, or just not just dreading it, basically fear or dread or something like that. It's you get complacent in your habits, and you'd rather just stick to what you're already doing.
Look, I'll share this. I haven't taken a vacation this year and in quite some time, and I am earning my vacation. I look at everything in terms of earning. You're gonna sacrifice, you're gonna pay a price, and then you're gonna hit the freaking lottery. And so, how am I looking at this? I'm going to take two massive tests that I have to take for myself to set myself up for even more success down the road. And I'm going to celebrate the heck out of my victory when I am completely done studying. I'm taking a month off. I got $10,000 to $15,000 that I myself have set aside just for a vacation. Play big, man. That's how I'm
Yeah.
gonna work hard, and I'm gonna play hard. I'm gonna party hard, if you will, but not really party because I don't really party. But I'm gonna go enjoy amazing views, amazing books on an amazing beach and a nice bungalow, and travel East Asia and just like enjoy the heck out of it. And then guess what? I'm gonna come back after that month. I don't think I'm even gonna spend $15,000. I just have it there on the side just in case I feeling a little, feeling a little wild. But I'm going to get back to business, and I'm going to come back hitting 10 times harder.
Yeah, I like that. That's typically how I like to do it too, and I've always been that way. Where, I mean, my wife and I, every once in a while, we'll go out to eat. Like, we'll go to Chipotle, or Red Robin's been our place lately. We'll do that every once in a while. But we're very much the same way, where when we're, 90-95% of the time, we're dialed in, we're good on our spending. But then, like, every once in a while, we'll treat ourselves to a vacation. Instead of, like, going out every single weekend, spending money every single weekend, which is very easy to do here in Vegas, we save that and then treat ourselves to a much more meaningful and better experience. Like, maybe we don't do those things every weekend. We save that money and then take a trip to Cabo or take a trip to Newport Beach or something like that. So we operate very much the same way. And it's nice, man. It's nice because by the time you get to that, it's by the time you get to that, you're ready for that break and you're ready for that vacation. And when you go on that vacation, it's nice. And then by the time, I'm sure this is the case for you, this is the case for me. By the time when I come back from that vacation, I'm ready to get back to it. Like I'm chomping at the bit. It's like, all right, I've had a good 3 days of not doing anything, and I'm recharged. I'm ready to go, and I'm fresh, full of ideas that I need to now bring to life.
100%. And I also think, on this, you appreciate that break so much more when you put the work in and you've earned it versus when you're spending every night. Again, we can go back to one of these analogies about just, stuffing your face with pie or cake or whatever your thing is, right? Like one slice of cake, phenomenal. 6 pieces of cake, you feel sick. So it's like, I know so many people who will go out every night and every weekend, and life's just one big party, and they're not and they go on these vacations. I gotta be honest, I'm not even jealous of them because I see their vacations and they're staying at whatever not so great hotel, not so great beach, not so great this. Everything's average to below average. And I'm just saying, when I go on vacation, I go on vacation. I'm getting the whole freaking bungalow. I'm getting the boat. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And then these same people come back and they're like, wow, like, I wish I did that, or I wish I could do that. And I was like, you can do that. You just look at life differently than I do, and you didn't earn it per se. And, the way in this freezer behind me, I love doing this too. I do treat myself, on a much smaller scale every day. I'm a huge sweet tooth. I love sweets. And I once a week I buy a very nice dessert for myself, and I divide it all up for each day of the week. Man, I have delicious cornetta ice cream bars in the freezer. And after this deep end episode, I'm going to town on a cornetta. Right, I studied all day. I'm going to enjoy it, and I just eat it very slowly, nice every bite. I appreciate it, but it's because it's earned. And so if you even look at that, like. And by the way, I bought the cornetta ice creams because they were on sale. What? Right?
Yeah.
So everywhere I can, I'm looking at, okay, how to do this, I think, the most effective way and still enjoy.
My version of that is just Coke Zero these days. I mean, every once in a while, it's like maybe I'll spring for like a margarita or some like stouts or something like that. But pretty much every day, like I'll have a Coke Zero right before dinner. It's like part of my routine now. Come 5:30 p.m. is, we're getting ready to have dinner. I'll reach into the fridge, crack one of those bad boys open after a day of working out and working and whatever. And finally, like after being able to start winding down, crack that bad boy open. That first sip of caffeine-free Coke Zero is like bliss. It's like, okay, I can relax now. And it's, I don't know, it's one of those, I think you have to have those small things, those small rewards to keep you on the straight and narrow until you get to the big reward, which is the trip or whatever. You know what I mean? It's those can keep you from straying.
As you were describing that, Coke Zero moment, I could feel it. I'm there with you. It's my cornetta moment. It's just like,
Yeah.
man, all day. And that the moment is coming.
Yeah.
And your body is like preparing itself. Your mind is prepared for this. And then on a larger scale, I'm so ready for the vacation. I've been sitting every day envisioning myself being done with the studies, being done with the testing, going on vacation, just sitting like, wow, like I'm prepared, and it's all going to be earned. And that's what makes it like the greatest moment of appreciation. And even if it's as simple as the Coke Zero or the cornetta, it's just like, that the moment's coming and it's well earned.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest part, is that you've earned it. Like you've made the sacrifice. You've done the thing that you don't want to do. And that's your reward for doing so. Like for example, yesterday I went on like it was in the afternoon. I probably hit the pavement at about 4 o'clock. I really did not want to run yesterday. I've, you know, I've been going pretty strong with this running thing for about six months or so now. I think I really started in like November. And I'm kind of getting to the point with it where now it's a part of my routine and the novelty's kind of starting to wear off. And I'm getting to the point with it where I'm not as excited about it as I was when I first started doing it. Because when you first started doing it, it's new, you're making progress left and right, it's fun. But now it's like I'm kind of settling into the point where it's just normal. It's just part of my thing.
It's you've changed, you've evolved. It's
I've
now a part of
evolved.
you.
And now in this new stage, and honestly, I think we can get like this with investing sometimes too. I refer to this as the boring middle of investing, or the boring middle, where this new thing that you started doing that you were obsessed with is now just kind of normalized. And yeah, it's a part of what you do. It's a part of your daily or weekly discipline, but it's not exciting. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's so much easier to contribute money to my portfolio and hit the buy button than it is to go hit the pavement and run 7 miles. And yesterday, I just really didn't want to do it. I really was doing whatever I could to like talk myself out of going and like feel okay about it. But, you know, I ended up forcing myself to do it, obviously, because my mindset is in my belief is that you're never going to regret doing that thing. You're never going to regret making that sacrifice and doing the hard thing that you should do, but you will always regret not doing it. And so anyway, I went and I did it. I even tried to compromise with myself. I said, well, maybe I'll go, but I'll just do five. But then I was like, no, that's stupid. If you're going to do five, you can do seven. And you could keep playing that game too. We did this when we were
Vegas.
running here in Vegas. We were going to go out for like just 4 or 5, but it turned into like seven. And you can keep playing that game where it's like, okay, we did seven. Should you go eight? Well, if you do eight, you can do 10. Like why wouldn't you just do 10? It's you're already eight deep. So anyway, I was making these deals with myself, but no, I went the distance. I went the full seven, and when I got back, the first thing I did was crack open that Coke Zero, and it was like, and I would have done it anyway, whether I ran or I didn't, but it tasted so much better, and I felt so much better about just the whole thing, like all the events of the day and the decisions made leading up to that point, and the Coke Zero was just like closing the book on a day that I could feel proud of. And if you do that consistently, I think you'll really feel better about yourself and where your life's headed. I think that's an important thing. So I don't really know what my point was in saying all of that. It was more just to tell the story, but you know what I
You
mean?
just wanted to tell us you were running. He's still running.
Yeah. But
You know what's interesting though about what you shared was you shared about that middle ground where it just becomes a part of you. And that's actually exactly, if we're coming full circle, what I was alluding to earlier, which is like you change and that you've now become Ryne the runner, right? Like you're no longer just starting to run. Like that, it's now a part of you. And that's the mentality that most people are scared of, because it's going to require you to have days like you just had. If I'm a runner, runners run. And what if one day I don't want to run? I wrote in 2020 a book. It was about 75,000 words. And
wow.
I completed the first draft, and I was like, oh yeah, this is like, I did it, right? And unfortunately, or fortunately, I like to say, if people understand my logic and how I kind of live life, fortunately, my computer actually crashed, and I lost the whole thing. And everybody has that reaction when I share this, but I always say thank God, because I wrote this book and I laughed as my computer crashed, because I recognized in that moment it was a book that I needed to write, but you all didn't need to read. And so I was like, thank you, God. It was like a God-given gift that it was just deleted. And then I took 6 months off, and then I wrote another book, a second draft, which I still have. And I am working on a third draft to narrow this thing down even more. And I wrote that second draft in if you could believe it, actually 14 days, because I was put into a COVID quarantine hotel. And I literally had a busted TV in the hotel room and nothing else but the computer. And like, that's it. I was like, let's write, and I just wrote, and I wrote 65,000 words, and it was the second draft. And I realized without the computer needing to crash that this is not yet the book that I want to publish, but I have the draft. And so why I'm sharing that is because the only thoughts that were coming to mind were, Ari, if you want to be a writer, well, writers write. If you want to be a runner, runners run. It's that simple. Investors invest. Businessmen or women do business, right? Like it's that simple. And I think that 90% of us in this world fool ourselves. We say we want to be, this is so classic today. Go look at freaking anything. Everybody's a self-appointed CEO on Instagram. They're first thing, CEO, right? Of what? Like a following of 500 people? Like, I don't know what you're doing. So I just think today we fooled ourselves and we're deceiving ourselves because as we're saying these things, like, again, YouTubers make videos. Good or bad, they make videos. And so if you're scared to post videos on YouTube and you only got 5 videos up and you're not making more videos, you're not a YouTuber. I don't care if you like that's just it. If you're not, I write every day. I have notebooks for writing here. Writers write, right? Like runners run, investors invest. And I think we need to stop fooling ourselves and get real with ourselves here. If you want to be an investor for this this kid's paper, enough with the excuses. Transform and evolve as a human and do the thing that you want to become, right? And a real CEO, a leader, they're up at 4:30, 5 a.m. reading newspapers, markets, things that are going on, things that are going to impact their business. And that's why I live the way that I live, because as someone who was running my own business, and then as someone now who's an executive at a business, and then as someone who wants to, after all is said and done, start a new business again for myself, this is it. Live life doing the things that your position requires you to do.
Absolutely. To close the book on that, applying it to investing and those who maybe are afraid to invest, if you want to be someone who doesn't have to work for money, you have to do things that align with someone who doesn't have to work for money. And someone who doesn't have to work for money is someone who, number one, lives below their means, and number two, uses that extra income or the spread between your expenses and your income to buy assets that will pay you without you having to work for them. That's really all it takes. That's really all it takes. So, yeah, and the unfortunate thing is the sooner that these people stop making excuses, the sooner that they can get on with this thing, which is, as we've talked about, something that everyone will have to do at some point in your life. And this could be a whole nother conversation, but if you're going to have to do this anyway, you might as well start today. You can't start yesterday because that's already gone and passed, but you can start today. And if this is something you're going to have to do at some point, and it's not like an option, it's really not an option, which is such a crazy thing to think about. You are going to have to do this, so you might as well make it easy on yourself. Just quit, kind of like your friend that you told the story about earlier. Quit procrastinating and just do it.
An hour a day. It's $5 a week. And when you simplify it all, and then you simplify and gamify, $5 a week to start doesn't seem like much, but I would guarantee after 3-4 weeks, you're going to get pretty excited and start putting 10 in. And then it's like when you read, Ryne and I are both pretty voracious readers, and I would reckon it's the same for you, Ryne. When you started reading, maybe you did like a couple pages or a chapter. I'll tell you what, reading about a book a week like that year, I read for a whole year a book a week. That was one of the most transformative years of my life. And since then, I haven't done a book a week, but I've dropped to like a book a month or 2 books a month. And when I pick up a book and read, my ability to read 2, 3 chapters at a time, 4 chapters, just totally get lost in the book. On Saturdays, I read almost half a book, sometimes even 75% of a book, because I have this allotment of time, 5, 6 hours, and I'm off technology on Saturdays, and I'm like, boom, right? And it's just like, it's amazing, but it didn't start that way. And I think we have to realize that as well. It always starts with an excuse.
I think I need to take a page out of your playbook and just do Shabbat every week. 'Cause that
You're
sounds
welcome,
like
man.
that sounds like so that sounds so nice.
Look, what was really interesting, there was a study that was done at Harvard, and they took Orthodox Jewish students, and they took the normies, if you will, just a group of students, and the students who observed Shabbat and had that 24-hour break away from technology and all things that didn't really matter so much in life, and focused in on what the real values of Shabbat are, which is like going in tune with yourself and the world and being present, having real conversations and giving yourself a mental break. The students, the Orthodox Jewish students, had performed far better on every test because of that 24-hour break. That's what the study found. And all the other students, not that they performed significantly worse, but they did perform lower on those testing scores. And not only that, they studied for much longer periods of time only to burn out faster. And so you got to look at that as well. And I think it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about with our breaks. Like I always say this, everything comes down to earning it. I earn my Shabbat. I burn out by Shabbat. So as I shut my phone off, I don't even want my phone on me. I'm like, I need the break, It's just so essential. Earn it. Earn the cornetta, right? I'm going to earn that,
Yeah.
baby.
I've really worked hard lately. I go through phases where I'm more mindful of it than other times, but I'm in one of those phases right now where I'm really trying to be better about a lot of that stuff, because it is, it's just so easy to be distracted by what's going on here. I'm a laptop right here, my desktop right here. It's just so easy to be distracted, and it's so easy to be it's so easy to be reachable at any point throughout the day. And so I've really been mindful lately of kind of fighting against that. And a couple of things that I do to help practice that are, number one, like when I'm working, or even it's kind of gotten to a point where I'm just doing it even if I'm not working. I'll have my phone just sitting on the charger in my bedroom, out of sight, out of mind. I'm not even thinking about it, not even dealing with it. And that's been really nice. Another thing, as I'm working, if I'm on my computer doing, scripting a video, editing a video, whatever it is, if I'm working, same thing. I'll keep this in the other room, and I'll also like close out of my email, out of like iMail or whatever, just so I'm not getting any notifications. Yeah, I'm on my computer, I'm using the technology, I'm looking at the screen, but I'm not distracted by anyone that could try and be reaching out to me, or any YouTube comments that come in or emails that I receive. It makes it so much easier to focus. And a couple of things that also help you practice that are reading. Because if you're reading, you can't read without being focused on the book right in front of you, and also running too. That's another one of those things where, yeah, you can have your headphones in. I know you like to listen to music when you're running, but you are totally present. You're totally focused on what you're doing. You can't run and like be doom scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or whatever as you're doing. You've got to pay attention, or you'll run into a pole. And I'm unfortunately speaking from experience there. And so all of those things have been really good in just trying to get that presence back, and build back up the attention span as well, which could be a whole nother conversation. So
Right. Is that why you stopped the Q&A on your walks? You ran into a tree?
Yeah, pretty much. No, I stopped the Q&A on my walks, which I really enjoy doing because I'm not walking anymore. Now, instead of walking, I'm like, oh, well, if I'm going to be out for 20, 30 minutes, I might as well run because I could just get so much more bang for my buck. But I need to bring that back. That was fun.
I will tell you this. If you commit to even just 3 hours on a Friday or Saturday or Sunday going phoneless, technologyless, you will never go back.
Yeah,
As a
I
matter
can
of
do
fact,
that.
you'll actually probably increase it to 5, 6
Yeah.
hours.
Oh, I'm sure. And that's kind of the. It's funny that you mentioned that because as I've started to do these things, I've seen myself progressively doing it for longer. So I maybe started off. I just wouldn't have my phone in the room with me as I'm working, as I'm scripting a video, and then that evolved to, well, I'm done scripting the video. Now I'll go down and have lunch or whatever. Still don't need my phone. And anyway, it's gotten longer and longer to now. Like I'm okay if I don't see it at all during the day. And that's where I like to be. The only reason that I like, and I'll check it periodically throughout the day, just because you just never know. I mean, especially if my wife's at work, if something's happening, and for in the very, very, very rare chance that like something bad happens, like you know what I'm saying. I don't want to let too much time pass. I want to be reachable for that. So, and I know that's kind of a glim thing to say, but that is something I think about.
I think that's on a lot of people's minds. When I shut off and shut down for Shabbat, um, things are still, the world's still going on. But I'm in tune with what's right in front of me, and after a few years of living, this track of life, the only thing I found is that when I turn my phone back on, I didn't miss much.
Yeah,
Nothing ever really happens.
which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing, and it just provided me with a lot of confidence to, there are Saturday nights I don't even want to turn it back on. I'm like, I just wait, it's Sunday morning, like
Yeah,
whatever, like, but it's so peaceful. It's
yeah,
so peaceful, and it actually gives my brain such a necessary break that by the time I do jump back in to the monotony of my life, I'm like super focused, and it's like pedal to the metal, like, wow. I'll turn on, the Series 7 stuff, and I'm like, boom, I'm like in it, and I'm so refreshed.
well, nice, man. We're running about an hour and 10 minutes here. I think this is a pretty good place to wrap up the episode. But um, Jake, if you're listening, fantastic questions. I still have four more from him, so maybe we'll go through another one next week. There's another really interesting one that I want to actually ask you next week. It's going to be a fun one. But yeah, really great question. Overall, really fantastic conversation. I mean, you have anything else before we end this bad boy?
I think we crushed it this week, if I don't say so myself. But I
Yeah.
will say this, investors, please leave comments down below. I'd love to know, first of all, again, your biggest loser, your biggest losing stock, why you're still holding on to it, the conviction that you have for it. Also, let Ryne and I know what you're doing to alleviate some of your stresses, to get necessary breaks so you can operate more like a CEO of your own life. And last but not least, the deep end is growing. This community is growing, but is not growing if you're not a part of it. So subscribe to the deep end channel here. Find Ryne and I both on Blossom as well to keep up to speed with every investment move that we're making. And with that, investors, tune in next week for another episode of The Deep End.